So there was a back and forth, I think it was a show on Unbelievable between Peter Millican and Peter S. Williams, and they debated the ontological argument. And one of the objections that Peter Williams brought, and I don't think it was like one of his biggest formal objections to the ontological argument, but he made mention of the fact that the ontological argument is accepted by a minority of philosophers. So does that like weigh heavily in any sense, or like should we take that as like how should we?
It really doesn't bother me at all. There are all kinds of strange views that are defended by a minority of philosophers. And one of the things when we are doing philosophy is you want to practice a certain kind of open-mindedness. It's not a popularity game where we're going to say, oh, well, that view is not allowed to be under consideration because there's only a few people. This is not, the American political scene where the Green Party only has like 5 members and so they never get a seat in Congress or whatever. When we're doing philosophy, we want to consider everything that is possible. So we look at the total logical space of available options when we're trying to think through answers to any particular question. And so I don't see why the ontological argument shouldn't be considered as a possibility any more than any other argument for or against the existence of God should or shouldn't be under consideration. So I just couldn't care less that there's a minority of philosophers who are attracted to the ontological argument. And there's something that we could say about the history of philosophy here. It wasn't all that long ago, within the last 50 years, that virtually all professional philosophers were atheists. And then, the landscape changed. Alvin Plantinga made a whole bunch of arguments concerning the rationality of believing in God if you believe in other minds. So the choice is you can be a solipsist, that's one view, and then you can think that it's just totally stupid to believe in God. But if you do believe that there are other minds, well, for all the same reasons that you would think it's rational to believe in other minds, for those same reasons it's rational to believe in God. And that sort of got the ball rolling towards a revival in metaphysics that we've seen in analytic philosophy that's come on the heels of the death of logical positivism and some other problems in the early 20th century. But if anybody was to say back in, say, the 1940s, like, should we take the existence of God seriously? And somebody was to say, well, of course we shouldn't, because that's held only by the tiniest minority of philosophers, then the massive gains that we have seen in metaphysics and theistic metaphysics over the last 60 years wouldn't have ever happened. And I'm thankful that when we're doing our philosophy, we don't say no view is allowed to come to the table on the basis of the fact that there's only a handful of people who think that this is a legitimate idea. So I'm not worried at all.
What do you think, like, is there something rhetorical going on there? Like, why do you think that he gave that sort of like, even if it wasn't a big objection that he gave, why do you think he made mention of that?
Well, I think we should be tenuous about these things. I recognize that I'm defending a view that's a minority opinion about some of these things. And it does bother me that the world's best and brightest don't see things this way. That does make me want to think, well, am I missing something here? Am I miscalculating? Have I forgot to carry the 7 when I was doing my math? So I don't think that we have good reason to be just entirely dismissive of the fact that nobody believes this stuff. At the same time, I don't think that because nobody believes something, we shouldn't take that idea seriously. But I've become very comfortable being in the minority. I'm a evangelical, born-again, God-fearing, Jesus-loving, Bible-believing Christian trying to make my way in academia. I'm a minority there, right? Mm-hmm. I'm a Berkeleyan idealist. There's only like 7 of us on the planet, right? So that's a minority view. So, and I happen to think the ontological argument is a pretty good argument for the existence of God. If that turns out to be a minority view, just chalk it up to one more of Ben's weird views. So, yeah.